Right. Okay. Good morning, all, and thank you for observing the silence in respect of all NHS and health workers around the world who've clearly making huge sacrifices for all of us at the minute. So, but just so that I know that people can hear, would you mind just raising your hand, just so that I know that people can hear us? Fantastic. Thank you so much. Just so that you're aware, we plan to have questions and answers. We'll try and answer them as we're going through. But if you've anything burning, we'll try and answer it sort of during the course, and otherwise we'll mop them up at the end. But great. This is recorded, so if for any reason the phone rings or you have to rush away, you'll certainly be able to get hold of this very, very shortly. So, okay, so just one thing that I need to do before, in terms of what I was thinking, what do I call what I talk about today? And I think for a lot of us, we perhaps have never, and I certainly haven't, and talking to my parents, they've never come across anything like this before. So, and I think that's the same for a lot of people in business and in life. So I've called it the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we've seen varying levels of that within business and in people generally. So that's kind of where I'm going to come from, and I'm going to talk about values, etc. For those of you that perhaps don't know me, just briefly, I'm a chartered accountant, chartered tax advisor, trained in a 4-partner office in Worcester before joining a couple of the big firms, and crazily 18 years ago decided, oh, you know what, I'll give all of this up and I'll start a business, and have no idea where it will go. But we are where we are today, and so I'm very grateful for all the people that have helped me. In terms of who's with me today, we have Alexandra Bond-Burnett, Trent, McLaren, and Karen. And I am going to ask each of you to briefly introduce yourself, but just a funny thing, when I was putting your pictures in, the software tried to describe each of you, and I'll summarize what each of you came up as. Alexandra, you're a lady with a green t-shirt.
Very true.
Trent,
so accurate.
Trent, you're a man in a suit. And Karen, yeah, and Karen, you came up as someone posing for the camera. So I think...
Okay, so we got nice lady, professional guy, and a poser. I'm not sure how I feel about this.
I don't know, it did say Trent would be in a suit, so I'm not sure how accurate that is.
That's true, I think he's failing.
I was also posing for the camera though, so I don't know, you know.
I've got my hands in my pockets, Trent. That's how you know. That's how you know.
Alexandra, do you want to briefly introduce yourself, and just for the benefit of those that don't know who you are?
Yes, of course. Thanks, Vipul. So my name is Alexandra Bond-Burnett, and I'm the founder of Speaking Ambition. And I basically focus on helping people to really speak with clarity and build up all those really essential communication skills. And then I'm not just any old speaking coach, because I am also not an accountant, but I actually founded my own accounting practice as well. So I do know what it's like to have the customer journey. I've been there, I've done it, and I definitely have a t-shirt.
Fantastic.
A green t-shirt.
Indeed. Trent.
Hi all, Trent. I'm not in a warehouse, although it may look like one with all these boxes. I'm the Head of Accounting and Strategic Partnerships at Practice Ignition. Living in Soho, London. Apologies if you can't understand the Australian accent, it's quite thick. And I'm talking today to you about creating client experiences digitally.
Great, thank you very much. Karen.
I'm Karen Reyburn. I own PF, and we're a creative agency that's just for accountants. And we've been actually spending a lot of time as a team talking about what kind of accountants we tend to work with. And some of the phrases, we haven't got the perfect little memorized line, I wouldn't say yet, but some of the phrases include ambitious accountants, entrepreneurial accountants, accountants who serve with heart. And we help accountants who serve with heart have confidence in marketing and actually enjoy it and love it and do it as a part of everything you do, not as an add-on to what you know you have to do. And so we're a creative agency, so we end up helping accountants with the specifics of marketing, but also with understanding what marketing is. And it really matters so much to us that the accountants that we talk to anyway are the ones who do want to serve from the heart. And I know that that's the same for Vipul and the others, that forms the basis of doing whatever kind of work, whether you're working with Vipul or you're using a proposal tool or whether you're learning to communicate, that it has to come from the heart. So that's something that's really important to us, and I'll be talking about in relation to marketing.
Absolutely. And yeah, you read my mind, Karen, because you know, why are we running this webinar? Well, we would normally have had a face-to-face webinar with our clients, but we've opened this up to a wider group. But what we're here to talk about is a subject that we shared at our annual conference in 2019, but we've adapted it for current times. But also what we see is really important for every firm is recognizing what its values are, how those are conveyed, and how that is reflected in the customer journey that they take their clients on. And what I've done here is, in very broad categories, said what happens with a client. How do you bring them on board? How do you reach them in the first instance? So I guess this is where Karen and her team come in communicating the values of the firms, what they're trying, the type of person that they're trying to attract to their organization, how you then onboard them. And there's some things where people like Trent would help, but the most important part, both at the beginning and right the way through the journey, is how you communicate that. Certainly, whether you're using us or whether you're using your own teams, all those other boxes are filled by people and technology. But actually, it's all of that together combined that represents that customer journey. And I think that's so important, that we do recognize that we don't have one thing that we do. Perhaps 20 years ago, a client walked in with a box of records and you turned it into a set of accounts. But I don't think the best accountants ever did that. And I'm going to share with you, because anyone who's ever heard me will always know, I always talk about a story for me. But in terms of this journey, I'm going to talk about, this is a phrase that I coined, which is the wow of today is the normal of tomorrow. And if you think about 10 years ago, if you ordered something from Amazon, if you got it after a week, you were delighted. Today, if it arrived after a week, what would be your reaction on receiving it a week later? You mean, what? I got it a week later? If not, you know, often, and you can, if you're close to one of the major hubs of Amazon, you could order it at 2 o'clock and have it delivered by 4 or 5 o'clock the same day. So what's normal today is going to be very different to tomorrow. And the reason I've used Amazon as an example is accountants shouldn't compare themselves with what other accountants do. It's actually how businesses behave and how consumers behave is not driven by that particular segment. It's by all the other experiences that businesses and people have that represent what their expectations are, if nothing else. So, hang on. So, why do you do what you do? And I think that is so important. You know, people talk about what's your why. I'll tell you what's my why. it's been driven by one thing and one person to a great extent. There's this mythical character that he's a real person called David, who was my parents' accountant. And all I can say to you, my holidays before were going to Rill in Blackpool, but after his input, my holidays were going to much warmer climes with friends, with family, etc. And that is the difference that we as a profession can make. We definitely can change lives, but we don't do that by producing a set of accounts. And if I'm ever asked, why did I set up AdvanceTrack? It's the wrong question. Because I just want everybody to be like David. And that's the reason I became an accountant, because I saw what he did. But we're in a changing world. But what you don't want to be doing is seeing that you're reporting on history. You definitely can change the future. And that's certainly what David did. And to put it in context, he definitely changed lives. My mother always said to me, whenever she went to his office, he had his feet on his desk and a phone attached to his ear. And I didn't believe her at all. But I got volunteered for free one summer to spend the time in his office. And he genuinely did compliance. Because I went and knocked on his door and I said, David, I'd never see you doing accounts. And he said, no, I have a team that do that. I deliver value and I change lives. And to give you an example of that, he charged my uncle £500 for less than an hour's work. You have to remember, this is 1987. So it's a long time ago. And you think £500, and my uncle complained about the bill, but my dad told him, pay the bill. And why did he tell him to pay the bill? Because he said, you would not have got the loan to buy that business without his input. So if you think about what you're doing today in helping your clients, recognize what you're doing. How you then get rewarded for that is different, but the values that you have will definitely be an important part of that. And your ability to charge will be reflected in how you're perceived, not just for that particular task, but generally. And I know in my own mother's experience, whenever it came to finances, she never phoned anybody else. She only phoned David, regardless of what it could then cost. And I genuinely believe that if he was in practice today, he'd be using those tools and services and have the empathy with the customers to drive that better service. So I'm going to try and quickly sum up, because I know there's some great content that my fellow panelists are going to share. But hopefully I'm setting the scene of where I see the future. I definitely see data driving more and more, and you can see that every day, every week, in terms of what the big software providers, etc., are delivering more and more features. But I think this absolutely sums up a whole swathe of our profession. And I think this pandemic may result in a number of firms changing the way they approach their clients. And this is Lloyd's of London, and they have basically paper systems and digital systems. So you think of your clients that have manual records, that have desktop software, and don't have that real-time information, and you compare that with the firms that use digital, so that use the cloud accounting software. So if you're operating in both of those, so you've got some clients who are, you're able to deliver the work, better work at lower cost to them because they're using these great tools. Yet you've got a whole bunch of clients who aren't on these tools, but they're costing you more. And I think what's going to happen, and we're seeing it now, that it is definitely going to change the way that you conduct your business. And this one is absolutely relevant. If you think about all the different plugins, the add-ons that you get to the Xero's QuickBooks Sage Clouds, by having them on a single platform or a range of platforms, but being able to plug in those different tools, you're able to deliver different services. So if a client wanted credit control, you're able to plug in a tool that helps you deliver credit control, and a whole host of other things that you're able to do. So, and again, this is by the same man, Lloyd's of London, because they're having the same challenges, that they've been a paper-based business and they're moving to digital. And that enables them to serve not only clients, because there is an international market. And what we have to think about in our profession is we're serving an international market. So just think about that, about how you use that digital power that you have and how you can use that data. So we see teams increasingly moving up the value chain, both within our business and our clients. Think about some of the practices that you see as the leaders within the industry. They now have technologists within their business. Cloud software is central, innovative services, but most importantly, this thing never goes away. The importance of relationships, and how you deal with them, how you communicate with them is very, very important. So I think remember that. But what I would say is, think about if you weren't using Zoom or Teams or something like that a month, 6 weeks ago, you're certainly doing that now, and it's helping you start that conversation. Applies to us and the whole profession. But most importantly, what you're going to see now is, whereas perhaps you might have had 2 or 3 meetings in a day because you were jumping in your car, going to see all these people, actually what you're now demonstrating in reality, you're probably having 14, 15 meetings in a day, and hopefully all of them are incredibly valuable both to you and your clients. So it's being able to create those repeatable processes. But again, being in that digital place allows you to do that. So how do I see it translating? And I think this is so important. The ugly. You know, we've seen some businesses really demonstrate how not to do business. So there may be instances where you will say, how is it that people, would you go, and I don't want to name call, so I'm being very careful what I say here, but there will be businesses that you've seen, their PR has been appalling. They've just done all the wrong things. And you're going to, at a point in the future, consider, is that the sort of business that you want to do business with? I had one of our clients say to us, they drove past one of their local accountants, and yes, like everyone, they were closed. But not only were they closed, they had furloughed all their staff, and the owner, I don't know, was perhaps sat in a garden because they weren't answering the phones and they weren't getting hold of clients. And you think, well, at a point in the future, what's going to happen is their clients will hear of all the good things that accountants or some accountants have been doing, and think about what you're doing and make sure if you are doing good stuff that you communicate that, because these people, only yesterday I think I read there was a singer who had not furloughed their staff in a different business, and another singer, multi-millionaire, had done so. Their perception has changed dramatically purely as a result of not doing or being seen to be doing the right thing. The bad, I think sometimes it's experience or innocence that just means that you don't quite come up to scratch. And, you know, sometimes that happens, but how do you communicate? You know what, hold your hands up and perhaps be honest with people, saying, look, I made a mistake. And that transparency isn't always going to help. And yet there's going to be others that you will say, you know what, fantastic, they did amazing stuff for me when I needed them most. And that is our industry and every industry. And it's about making sure that they communicate that right the way through as well. It's not a bad thing to tell people when you've done good. So how do you demonstrate that? I've talked about that. I think most importantly, you've got to remember this is nothing different to perhaps 6 or 8 weeks ago. It's just you're doing things a lot quicker. So keep innovating, keep communicating, and drive that digital journey. And I know that like roadmap that I shared at the start, they're different blocks, but the more digital it is, the better able you are to deliver that quickly and effectively for your clients. So I'm really delighted that the three of you are able to join today. Karen, if you wouldn't mind taking over, that would be fantastic.
Yes, so if you stop, then it'll allow me to start. There we go. Thank you so much, Vipul. And I was taking a few notes on some of the things that you were saying, because everything that I'm going to talk about marketing ties in exactly with what Vipul was saying, in that some things have changed and some things haven't. And the things that haven't are things like marketing. We're going to talk about that. But I was thinking about, you know, the things that haven't changed are relationship. Vipul mentioned relationship and empathy. Those have always been important to your client relationships. Those have always been important to marketing. That critical to marketing. I think we're finding how critical. Time, the investment of time has always mattered. I think that, interestingly, the Amazon example you were giving, Vipul, it just struck me. Oh, wait, hold on. It says it's not sharing my screen. Give me a second. It just struck me while you were sharing that about Amazon, that I'm like, normally, yes, normally I would say, like, that is a day is when I expect it to be, but sorry, for some reason, give me 2 seconds. It just, tell you what, can you see a yellow screen right now, Vipul? Or do you just see
marketing redefined?
All right, so for some reason, it doesn't allow me to share anything more than just my one screen.
No. Yeah, Kia's saying we can see that he can see the screen.
Yeah, it's just the one slide. Well, maybe you don't get to see all the slides. Maybe that's just the way it goes. Anyway, so what you're saying about Amazon is that normally, yes, a delay of a day would seem like a lot, but because we're now in a time where everything has changed, it's okay with us that it takes a week. I mean, it's sort of not okay, but we've gotten reused to it. I ordered something from Amazon and it said it would take a week. I ordered something from another company, it said it would take 2 weeks, and I didn't freak out. I was like, well, that's, you know, they're doing the best that they can. So there is a bit of a time delay there. And one of the things a lot of people have been saying is how nothing is canceled, it's just postponed. And I know we say, oh, this event was canceled or this concert was canceled or whatever, but the truth is it's not truly canceled. We haven't canceled it entirely and we're never running it ever. It's just, it's gonna be 2021 instead of 2020. So when we bear that in mind, when it has to do with marketing, it kind of calms us down a little bit, because instead of trying to push super hard for things, we're playing the long game right now. We've always been playing the long game with marketing, but now more than ever, because we're being very sensitive to the fact that some people literally don't have the money or time or whatever it be. And I've experienced this as well at PF. We've got some boundaries that we've set in to determine what ideal clients are and things. And normally, if somebody's not ready to pay, they're just not ready. But we do appreciate that this is like a life-changing thing that has gone on. And there are some people who are in a very bad way. And so they are literally not able to do this right now. And this is the point with marketing, as with anything else. We're playing the long game of investing in the relationship so that when they are ready, we're the one that they come to. So just as things haven't fully been canceled, marketing and buying, the people who buy, it hasn't changed. It's just in some cases it's delayed. Now, one question I have, if you want to type it into the chat box, I'm just interested for those listening. Have you seen more leads coming in, the same amount of leads, or fewer right now, just in your accountancy firm? Just type that into the chat box, whether you're having more leads than you were having before, more prospects inquiring, or the same, or fewer. And that, I'll be interested to see that, because some of the firms we're talking to are having fewer. A couple people you saying fewer. Some people having more. Somebody said slightly more. Some people are having wildly more. Vipul was talking about accountants who have had to shut down or who are really struggling. And many accountants are actually taking business from them because they're doing such good things. Okay, so it looks like mostly, I'm just glancing through all the answers, I'd say probably 70–80% of you are actually getting more. And this does not surprise me at all. Don't despair if you're not one of those. We've had a few clients who are like, oh man, everybody says they're getting all these proposals and quotes and I haven't got any yet. And then a week later, he actually recorded a video and was like, okay, so first PF keeps telling me I'm supposed to record videos, so I'm finally doing it. But he said, I started doing videos for my clients. And he said, it felt like I did a horrible job, felt like I stumbled over my words, felt like I didn't know what I was doing. And he said, guess what? The clients loved it because I was talking about the things that matter to them. That's all marketing is. You guys are actually doing marketing better than you've ever done it before, because your three biggest enemies of perfection, fear, and time, they're gone. You know you don't have to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. The number of calls I've had with kids running through, dogs barking, somebody going, oh my goodness, somebody's at the door, I have to run and get this. And you're like, whatever, that's life. We're all in the same boat. Fear, well, you've got bigger things to be afraid of. We've all got bigger things to be afraid of than clicking live on a video and recording it. Plus, everyone else that you see is recording videos and maybe not doing it perfectly. And then time, you know, that excuse that everybody always tells me, oh, I'm not doing marketing or videos or social media or blog posts or changing my website or looking at my brand because I don't have time. And we always challenge that at PF. We always say, what is your biggest prevention other than time? Like, let's just set time aside because it's not a real reason. What's the real reason? This crisis has shown us all that we all have time depending where we put it. And I'm not going to be one of those annoying people that's like, oh, you have so much more time in this pandemic. You guys are accountants. I work with accountants. None of us have more time. Most of us have less time, actually. But we are choosing where we put that time. And so many of you guys are spending time on the things that build relationship, that share information, blog posts, videos, social media, web pages, because who cares if it's not perfect? Just get it out there. So if you aren't getting more inquiries, remember you will, 100% you will. I cannot stress that enough. You guys are, other than the NHS workers and the health workers and the people that are on what we call the front lines, I would say you guys are in the next in that line. You're on the front lines of business. You're literally saving businesses and helping to do that. So people will buy from you. Some of them are gonna buy more than ever now, and some of them are gonna do it later, but it's all about relationship. This is a progression model that we put together probably 2 or 3 years ago at PF, and is still true. And we put this together to illustrate that when you are doing marketing, people don't leap from never having heard of you to paying a retainer the next day. They don't tend to. It's rare, it happens time to time, but they don't tend to. They tend to go through a progression. So they've never heard of you, they become vaguely aware, they see your blogs and your social and all this content, maybe they download some free stuff, maybe they come to an event that you're running. Back in the days when we ran in-person events, and hopefully we will again one day, not sure when, but you know, whether it's online or offline or a strategy session or whatever, and then they sign up for a monthly retainer, a big project, or both. As I said, there's a few people who shortcut that, but this is the standard. This is the way that the buyer buys, because they are building trust. They are trying to figure out if you are who you say you are. Their biggest fear is that they are going to be suckered in by the marketing that you do and discover that you're not who they thought you were. This is why having professionals speak on your website has to go. I was working with the PF team this morning on a website we're building for a firm who's quite a decent size firm. They've got 15 offices and hundreds of employees. And so they've been around 120 years, something like this. So there's this traditional element, but they have this heart. They're these accountants that serve with heart. And that has to come across, and we're working on the wording that we're helping them with on the site, and we're being ruthless with ourselves to be like, no, we have to talk like humans now more than ever. I've always said this, but now more than ever we have to talk like humans, because people don't have time, they don't have patience for an accountant that says, we will help you review your personal and financial goals and improve the quality of your blah 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 blah, and it sounds like everyone else. And what you guys are doing so well right now is recognizing that all that has to go out the window, because they want to know who you are as a person and who your firm is as a brand. A brand simply means that your firm, if it was a person, would be this kind of a person. It would be this friendly person, or this go get 'em kind of person, or this relaxed, chill person, or whatever it would be. That's what your brand is. That's what you're building right now. You're building that brand connection. So I thought about what marketing actually is, what marketing always has been, and what it is now today. And as I put it together, and I'm going to go through these, I've got 5 or 6 lines of what marketing is, I realized it's exactly the same. Marketing redefined is exactly what it was before. It's just coming into its full awareness. You guys are becoming aware that marketing doesn't mean telling people your services and asking them to buy from you. Marketing means that you're connecting with somebody relationally and telling them what you know. So the sort of definition I've put together based on what the best of marketing and what it is now more than ever, and this is what I want to encourage you to do for the next however long we're in this and beyond, is to help people, first to help people with what you know. You guys are in professional services, you're in the business of information, and you're helping people with what you know. Now, many of you are helping your clients with what you know, but I've seen accountants who are beginning to share that. So you communicate it visibly. You record a video for your clients, and then you share it with all the peoples. You put together a blog post on the new funding or the furloughing employees or whatever it be, and then you share that with everyone. This is what communicating it visibly means. You don't just help people. You take what you know and communicate it visibly. Remember the truth of give away information, charge for implementation. That is more true now than ever. Just give away all the information. They're going to find the information anyway. They may as well get it from you. If they look at it and go, this is exhausting and difficult, I need help, you will have built relationship and they will come to you for help. If they want to do it themselves, they were always going to do it themselves, so it doesn't matter anyway. You may as well let them have it. I've seen so many accountants kind of prior to this time have been very nervous about sharing what you know, because you're like, what if other accountants see it? And what if, what if somebody takes this information and never gets in touch? And I always have said, well, okay, let's imagine that. Let's imagine this person reads your whole blog, and instead of thinking, these guys really know what they're talking about, I'm going to get in touch, they go, I could do that myself, and I will do it myself. What kind of client is that? And they go, oh, well, I guess that's the kind of client who's going to do it themselves regardless. And they're probably going to be the kind who's going to query me on fees too, because they're going to be the kind that goes, oh, well, actually, that seems really expensive because I could do it myself. And I read your blog and I spent 3 hours on it. and I don't think I need to pay you for this. That's fine. I mean, it isn't, but you know what I mean. If they want to be that way, they're just not your ideal client. Let them go. Just give them the information. But communicate it visibly so that the right people, the best people, the kind of clients that you want are drawn to you and to your style and to the way you do things. So you take what you know, which currently there's a lot of opportunity to share things about furloughing employees, about payroll, about the funding and the government grants and the C-bills and all of those things. You help people. I have heard from so many accountants that are like, it's not like the information isn't out there. It's not even like we haven't shared it by video and blog. Why are they even asking? They just want to check. They just want to be sure. They don't know this stuff. They're not sunk into this stuff every 30 seconds of the day. They're scared. You know they're scared. They're scared they're going to lose their business. They're scared they're going to get fined. They're scared they're going to make the wrong decision. So you help them. You communicate it visibly. So when they need what you sell, what you serve, then they come to you. Whether that's today or tomorrow or in a month's time, you just keep helping people. You just keep communicating it so that when they need what you sell, you're the one that they trust. I know you guys have experienced this before where you're thinking, you know, I could really use some help with fill in the blank. The first person that comes to your mind tends to be the one who has been doing this. If I remember when we were looking for trademarking the PF logo and brand, that I asked a couple people if they knew of somebody, and the first person that came to mind was somebody who had been sharing stuff along that category for years, and I knew them personally. They just came to mind. This is what you want to be as an accountant. So this definition has not changed from a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It's just that it's more important now than ever to communicate it visibly and be patient and let them come when they're ready. So for all of you who have more inquiries, just keep talking to them. And for those of you who have less, just keep helping people, sharing what you know, communicating it visibly, because you will absolutely be getting more business in the long run. So I mentioned giveaway information and charge for implementation. It's a very important concept to remember because you're going to be tempted not to give things away. You're going to be tempted to keep it to yourself. But the fact is, the more you share and the more that you give your spin on it, the more they're going to want to work with you. And then you charge for implementing that information for their business, for their situation, for their employees, for their whatever, wherever they're at. The final point I want to remind you to is as you share this content, and this is what, if I go back to this one, that helping people with what you know and communicating it visibly, that's what we call creating content. Videos, blog posts, webinars, online events, resource centers, social media, all that stuff. That's the stuff that you keep sharing so that eventually you're building like a library, not just of content, but of assets. So this means that instead of just saying, well, here's what you can do to get some cash now, you're thinking, what can I have built so that when people get to cash problems again in the future, this is the tool that they use. This is the PDF download. This is the G sheet with the formulas in it. I've seen a lot of accounts doing that, like a quick budgeting Excel sheet or G sheet that they share. Anything that you can build that says, we build a little system around this, so when you have this problem again, you can use that and you can try it yourself and see how incredibly difficult it is and realize how much you need our help. And then they go, well, I think I'm going to come to this accountant because I've seen their videos and I've read their blog posts and I've connected with them and they seem like my kind of people. And that's why video is so, so powerful. When you connect with somebody on video, then you're connecting with who they really are faster. It just hurries the buyer cycle along. The number of accountants I know who have avoided video up until this point are realizing, first, nobody cares if it's not perfect. But secondly, it actually enables them to build relationship faster. And that's what we're trying to do with that progression model. If I go back to this, we're trying to speed people along here as quickly as they want to go. You're not speeding them along faster than they want to go. But if they really want to zoom ahead, you got to give them everything that's possible to enable them to do that. And that means content, that means consistency, that means building assets and building relationship, and then let them come when they're ready. And they will come because they will be ready from everything that you've been sharing. So we put together, skip ahead to this one, PF has put together a page on our site that's just called Helping. There's a big banner on the front of it if you go there. It's got all of our free resources, all of our stuff that's related to marketing during this time. So there's videos, there's blog posts, there's loads of free stuff in there. So have a look at that. We're trying to show by example. We know we never do it perfectly, but we're trying to show by example how you can combine all of your great content and share it in a way that's useful. And then on the other side of this, that becomes your resource center for all the things. And then you just keep doing this. You just keep helping people so that they come to you when they're ready.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Karen. Interesting your comment about trademark, because when we appointed our trademark people, it came from a recommendation. But, you know, I talked earlier about the good, the bad, and the ugly. I went to one big trademark firm who said, Vipul, it wasn't for trademarks, it was for some other IP protection, said, we can do everything. And they quoted a silly amount of money. And I happened to go and see our own lawyers for some commercial documents. And I said, do you know anyone? And they recommended somebody else. And the guy just said, Vipul, save your money. Don't bother applying for that. Protect it in a different way. And that's exactly what we did. But then when we did need the trademark work, guess who got it? Because it came from that honesty that actually, I don't want to take your money for that because it's not going to give you what you need.
Yeah, that actually, it's a really good point. What you just said there is it's not really about the money. Like, yes. You know, it's not about whether this is a lot of money or it's a little money. It's, do I trust this person that this is the money that it is, yep. And that this is the best place for my money to go? Yep. And I've seen so many accountants right now that are literally bending over backwards for their clients. And I believe rightfully so. Yep. You know, you might need to charge them a little bit for some of this stuff, but you're trying to do everything possible to help them, you know, just to help them. But for prospects, you're going, well, this is valuable. We need to build a new relationship. And if they trust you, then they will. And you just need to have the patience to let them come at that time.
Totally. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Karen. Yeah. And I know we'll sort of deal with questions. So if you are thinking of anything, pop them in the chat box or the Q&A and we will come to it. Alexandra, do you want to take control?
Yes, of course, I can. Can you hear me okay, everyone?
We can.
Perfect. Okay, so I think I can share my screen as well with you. Let's go over here. Just checking we can all see the screen as well from this side. Hopefully. Okay, can you all see that? Can you see us? Amazing, I'm getting some nods. If anyone does a thumbs up, that's brilliant. Okay, so what does speaking have to do? I mean, everyone else, Karen, Vipul, you've already been talking about so much of what is so immensely valuable right now for people. And that is trust. It is just having these conversations. It is about giving someone that is looking for help, giving them the absolute green flag that you are the person to go to. And that means it's not about you, it's about what you can do for other people as well. So what I'm going to talk to you about is how you can actually enhance what I call your human capital. All of the things, all of the elements in your balance sheet that make you an amazingly effective person to work with. Now, that's the thing, is when we talk about communication, we're actually looking at how that breaks down. What is it that makes us really effective? Why do we go to someone? Now, think about it this way. You've signed into this webinar right now. Why was that? Was it because that you saw what was on offer and you thought, yes, great, of course it was. There was that element of, yeah. There's also an element of trust. I trust these people. I know them. I know their name. I know AdvanceTrack. There's also the fact that you want an experience and you know you're going to be taken care of. And you know that the people are going to be great communicators. Now, I want you just to have a quick think at the moment of any other either meeting or webinar that you've had in the last week. It could be a phone call or a video, anything like that. And what one really sticks in your head? Who is that person? And why? Now, part of it will be what they said, it will be the content, but a lot of it will be how they said it. Because it's a bit like Karen was just saying now, they can go online, they can Google the information, they can find it. What they're looking for is for you to reassure them, is for that voice of trust and also, as I just said, assurance. It really is just that. So what I'm going to show you is how we build up that human capital. Now, human capital is a term that I'm using right now to really look at our strengths and weaknesses, or as we know, our assets and our liabilities. And the reason why is that if we are really effective with our communication, then we manage the stress and successes of our client relationships. We build amazing long-term relationships, which is what is happening now. Because right now people are searching for information. It's like everything's been compacted and people are going online, they're trying to figure out all of the loans, they're trying to figure out what their cash flow situation is, they're trying to figure all of this stuff out right now. But if they trust you right now to deliver that information, that will carry on throughout a longer relationship. And when we are accountants, yes, I saw someone in the chat box was saying that, yeah, loads of inquiries about the C-bills, loads of inquiries just about funding, you're probably sick of the word furlough. and absolutely, but the thing is, by being effective managing that success now or managing the stress now, you will build a longer term relationship. And even if that person, it's just what, again, this carries on with marketing as well. As Karen was saying, is that even if you're giving that information and you're seen to be helpful, word of mouth, reputation, all of these things get built. It makes you the trusted person to go to, or the trusted practice to go to as well. Because this isn't just something, human capital isn't just about you personally, it's about your entire practice, your entire firm. How are you all communicating effectively? So in that sense, it's not just about marketing. It's not just about marketing. It is about how you get things done and how people trust you. And that leads me very nicely. So I really love this. This is the trust equation. Has anyone heard of the trust equation or done anything with it? I'm going to let me know, put a hand up or anything like that if you have. Now, think about it this way. Think about who you trust, or when you buy, who do you trust? When you have a massive decision to make, who do you trust? Now, this has been broken down. This sadly was not mine. This is a beautiful equation that was written, and it really does break down how we trust as human beings. So the first one is credibility. Why do you know what you know? So credibility could be experience, the fact that you're out there, the fact that you're talking about stuff. So it means you're talking to people, having conversations. And of course, because we are in a profession, it means also your qualifications as well. Reliability. So credibility plus reliability. Reliability is literally showing up and saying you're going to do what it is you said you were going to do. It's that simple. So showing up and doing what you said you were going to do. So that means that not only are you just going, yes, of course, I'm going to just tick off the list on your letter engagement, but you're going to be there. You're going to get there before it's done. They know they don't have to worry at any point. Now, again, think of that person that you trusted to do something. Or if you went for information, think about a brand that you use. Reliability comes into that. So credibility, reliability, and then we've got intimacy. Now, this is where your voice comes in. This is where how you communicate really comes in, because you can be credible and you can be reliable, but unless you build that level of rapport with people, that the other two don't matter, because we want to connect. We're humans. This is why it's human capital. We are humans. We're going to make a logical decision, but with a really great big dollop of emotion as well, because we do go to people who we like. So I love the story Vipul was sharing earlier about David, and just how not only effective this guy was, but it was how they made the whole family feel. And that has carried on throughout his entire purpose. So if you think about how you make someone feel when you're speaking, how do you make them feel safe? Do you make them feel challenged? Do you make them feel like they can do anything? How do you make them feel? Do you make them feel like they don't need to worry at all because you've got it? So intimacy is so vitally important. So credibility, reliability, intimacy. We're going to take those three things and we divide it into self-orientation. And self-orientation is one of those funny phrases, because as soon as you say it, does anyone know what it means? Do you know what it means? I wasn't sure either. So don't worry. Self-orientation is literally who are you thinking about when you are communicating. Now, a lot of the time we get stuck in our own brains because, of course, that's what we are. And even more so now, we are literally stuck within walls. I'm in my office now. I'm so happy to be in my office because it's only up the road from my house. But we're stuck and we always think about, oh, what are they going to think of me? What if I'm wrong? What if I? And that means your self-orientation is focused on you. How can I get more clients? How can I be successful? How can I? So we need to turn this around and actually think about the client. How can you help them right now? What do they need right now? And actually, what do they need next week and the week after and the week after that? Start communicating that, put them front and center, be the mentor. So if we're talking about storytelling techniques, the hero is the center of the story. We need to make the client the hero. They are setting out to achieve. We just help them get there. We give them the tools, the gadgets, all of the metrics they need, the data they need to be successful and to win effectively, or overcome the beast, we should say. Is that right, Karen? I'm using great marketing storytelling terms there. Yeah, I like that. Building a story brand. That
book, by the way, if anyone hasn't read it, Building a Story Brand, it's all about your client being the hero. And I love that Alex just said that, because some people will tell you that you are the hero, but you're not. You're the guide. So.
Yeah, I love it. I often talk about, so examples would be, for instance, Yoda in Star Wars. He doesn't go and actually take down the Empire. I've never watched Star Wars, is that a bad thing? But he does give all of the guidance. He mentors Luke Skywalker to help him. And the best one I prefer, because of course my name, is actually James Bond. So if you think about James Bond, every single movie, every book, he's on a mission to succeed, to do something. And that is the thing. He is the one that does it. So let's think our clients are actually James Bond. Now, who is the guy? Who is the guy who has gadgets and technology and knowledge and know-how? And James Bond can never succeed in any of those stories without those things. It's the Q. It's the quartermaster, and that's where we are. We're that mentor, that quartermaster that's guiding our hero to overcome. And that is more so now, more than ever. So I want you to start thinking, how can you get ahead of the game and make sure they have exactly what they need for their challenges ahead? And this is the thing, when you start talking about your credibility and about your reliability and your intimacy, and the self-orientation is focused firmly on them, then your voice changes and your body language changes, because it's all about them and you're not thinking about you. So this is where you need to be really clear. Now, the thing about credibility, and I'll quickly go back to that C, because sometimes, and again, we've mentioned this earlier today, we need to be very clear about our successes. We need to toot our own trumpet. But that's really hard to do, because no one wants to be the guy that is bragging about what they do. It's really cringeworthy and awkward. But we do need to, if you think about the fact that the people out there, your clients, potentially future clients, a business owner that is in trouble right now, or next month, or in 6 months' time, desperately needs to know that you are credible. So it isn't about you, it's about them needing to know where to go to for help, and you need to communicate that. So it is really important. Now, I'm going to quickly just go on to the drivers. In fact, I actually didn't notice the time I started, guys. Did anyone have a time check on me? And no.
We're
just going.
Alexandra.
I was going to say maybe 5 minutes.
We're all running about 20 minutes or so. So
we're in the groove.
You're absolutely fine.
Perfect. Okay. So the next step, so we've got the trust element. We're thinking about how we can get their trust. Now we've got, if you're going to be a really effective communicator, you really need to think about your audience. And I use the word audience because it could be your team, and we're talking about the customer journey, but I will throw that out there because your team are also going to be dealing with your customers. So we've been talking about a lot about what you're putting out there and helping your client. The main part of communication is actually what's coming back at you. It's listening. So my company is called Speaking Ambition, but there should be a whole other part of it is listening ambition, because all of it is a two-way transaction. Now, that makes it interesting because we've been talking about video as well, and we're delivering a webinar, but that's why we're asking questions. We're asking you to raise hands. We need to have that conversation with you and connect with you directly. So I'm going to quickly go through these main breakdown of drivers that make people want to do something. So what gets us up in the morning? And I did see a really funny what are those things called, meme yesterday that says what gets me up in the morning, mainly a weak bladder, to be honest with you, but yeah, there we go. So you've got to think about what really gets you up in the morning, and hopefully not the bladder. I'm going to go back this way. Okay, so the first one is autonomy. So being really in, like, you are going to be in control of everything once you have learned this. Once you get this numbers, once you get your cash flow, you are going to be in control. So that might really tick someone's box and go, oh yes, okay, I want to be in control. The next one is mastery. So okay, once you see this and you open up, for instance, your Zero dashboard, and once we get your management account and we get everything there, you can then master everything. You're going to know exactly what's going on. Let's have a look at these numbers. Why is that happening there? So really liking to be knowing every function, knowing everything about it, and being a master of all, as it were. And purpose, well, I think Vipul set the tone right at the beginning, is he had such a clear and driven purpose about why he does what he does. So clearly we know that Vipul's driver is purpose. He wants to fulfill that ambition. So other people have a very clear defined purpose. Now, while I was talking, you might have gone, yes, okay, no, I'm definitely driven by autonomy. Mastery spoke to me. I want to know all the things, or I have a really clear purpose that I want to achieve. So now you've got to turn that around and think about who you're communicating to. Ask yourself, what drives them? And I want you to have a think about that. Whatever you've got on for the rest of the day, if you've got another meeting, if you're having a phone call with a client, if you're even writing an email, I want you to ask yourself this question. What drives them right now? What is it? Is it autonomy? Is it mastery? Or is it purpose? Have a think. So I want you to have a look, because once we combine all of those things, we are going to have an amazing balance sheet for our personal human capital. We're going to have so many assets, and we're going to really build up our equity. And the reason why this is all so important, and crucially right now, is that, as we've said, we're dealing with fear, and we're dealing with that sense of we don't know what's going to happen. And I have to say, it is overwhelming. If we think about it almost too much and not strategically, that it can feel crushingly overwhelming. And the reason why, if any of you have seen Maslow's hierarchy, and I use this a lot when I'm coaching people, is the fact that the physiological needs, we have been put right down at the bottom of our safety levels. So for brain safety, as I call it. Okay, so what happens is our physiology is what we need to survive, and right now we are in survival mode. So a lot of your clients are currently in that survival mode, and they are going to be talking to you from a place of fear. They're going to be reacting from a place of fear, and our brains take in information and we feel fear a lot of the time. So your communication, your trust, your credibility, and your intimacy really needs to speak to them, to find your calm voice, to find your steady voice, so that you can raise them up a level to know that they are safe. And when I mean safe, that might not be that their business might not survive right now, but they need to know that it's not the end of them. It will be an impact, but you are going to help them. Okay, so things will change, but you will help them. So if you can get them, we might not get them to love and belonging, where usually, had we have spoken a month or two ago, that's where I say that's our aim, that's our goal. Right now our aim is safety. And then as you go up your journey for your customer for the next 6 months, 18 months, depending on the business, depending on the situation, is to get them from a place of safety to love and belonging. And using your voice, being calm, being, well, I'll show you actually, there we go, is to create that safety in your brain. Really communicating clearly is how we do that. This is where we move over to clarity. I love this bit because this is where we get to talk about our voices. Our voices, our body language really affect people. Now, right now, you can only see our head and shoulders. So we are missing a huge part of how we communicate with people. So we are not seeing the rest of our body language, and body language makes up 55% of how we communicate, and 38% is how we say stuff. So that leaves 7% is just what we say. Okay, so I might as well just start miming. But it means we need to be really active in sitting up straight, looking at the camera, really engaging, and being on point. So if you're going to communicate via a camera, really think about how you can dial up your voice to really get them to that safety level. Okay, the next step is to be very clear on the action that you need to take. So if you're going to be an effective communicator, we need to be very clear. Who is doing what? When are they doing it? Why are they doing it? Really be clear to get them to act. Data, you guys are going to love data. That is the when. The when, the why. Now, data basically is broken down into two things. Does it cause us pleasure or pain? Does it reward us or cost us? So really be clear on how you say that to someone. Okay, so just to sum up. Oh, I forgot this bit. This is one of my favorite bits, of course. I'm going to ask you all a question. Okay. I want you to think of a client that you're going to speak with either later today or tomorrow morning, perhaps. So the next client that you're going to speak to, the next customer you're going to speak to. Now, this is what we call transactional analysis, and it is the parent, the adult, and the ego. The ego? That's a wrong word. I was obviously not thinking. The child, it should say. Ignore that. Should go to a whiteboard. So these are ego states, and we can flit, every human being flits between the parent, the adult, and the child state. So now I want you to ask yourself, a parent can be nurturing but also very controlling. Don't do that, do as I say, but equally say, come on, you can do this. I believe in you. Come on, just pull yourself up. Sometimes we all need a parent. An adult would be rational, I never say that right, and reasonable. It's because I say reasonable. So an adult will be direct, to the point, and let them come to you. A childlike can be really curious, but a bit crazy and chaotic, and also have a lot of tantrums because they just can't cope with what's going in themselves. So now I want you to ask yourself, your client that you're speaking to, how do they react to you? Are they a child's ego, an adult ego, or a parent ego? And now I want you to think, how do you react to them? Okay, so write that down, have a think about that, because this is the really important thing. You can affect it. If you're going to parent them, they might turn into a child. If they turn into a child, you might end up parenting them. It flits between. So I want you to be really clear on really how you're using your voice. So the main thing I want you to take away from today is really think about how you are using your voice to communicate. What do you inspire from other people? So take the C, the R, and the I and think about that and rate yourself out of 10 for each one. What do you score? Your credibility. How are you talking yourself up? How believable are you? Your reliability. Are you showing up? Are you doing what you're saying you're doing when you want to do it? Intimacy. Are you calm? Are you using your voice? Are you interactive with your body language? Are you there? Now, ask yourself what you want to work on. Okay, if there's any questions, let me know. And otherwise, I'm going to stop the share right there. Basically, be the effective communicator, be trusted, and I'll hand back over there.
Perfect. Is that my turn now?
Yeah, Vipul's muted, so just carry on, Trent.
Fantastic. I love that. Thank you for the introduction. I appreciate that. So I'm just going to share my screen right now, and I would love to keep this really specific and to the point. So I don't have a lot of points today. I want to give you one idea to follow, one framework to take away from this particular session, and then then go and create it and share with me all the magic you might do after that. So I think it's pretty, listening to Karen, listening to Alex and to Vipul as well, there's a lot of crossover and synergies with what we're all talking about. There's a lot of customer centricity, there's a lot of, whether it's heroing the customer or I refer to it as market orientation, like having an understanding of what are we doing for our customer and how does that impact and result into the work that we do for our clients. For this particular point that I want to run you through, and this is normally a lot bigger session, like, well, I could do this in sort of 90 minutes where we break down a business model to smash it to smithereens, put it all back together again. And I'm giving you the one point and concept out of this that I'd love for you to take away around how do we create customer experience, but how do we do that digitally? Now, I would have done the same talk 3 months ago, but I think now it's more important because you are all at home, working from home like me, hopefully not packing and trying to move house amongst a pandemic. I wouldn't recommend it, but sometimes there's the things you've got to do. how are you doing this within your business and pivoting in different ways you hadn't thought of before? So sticking with creating this customer experience and how do we do it digitally, I want to introduce you to the people, process and technology framework. And you can see that represented here on the screen in the nice pink, blue and yellow bubbles. And we talk about within people, tech and process, this helps us get to creating a service blueprint. And I want to show you what a service blueprint is all about. So within this, we go, you know, in people, who's doing stuff, in technology, what do we do stuff with? So what tools are we using? And then in process, we're saying, well, how is stuff getting done? What are the things that we're getting done? And you can see within that overlap, there's little things. When people in process overlap and integrate well, we are able to scale. We can chuck 10 or 20 people onto a particular function of our business and scale that service out as long as the demand is there. But it all comes from having that nice process. Again, you think to how franchising works, it's all built on having a really good PPT process. You know, you go to McDonald's and they're smashing out. I don't personally. You might. No judgment if you do. But they are just churning out so many burgers and nuggets and bespoke to what your needs are because they have systems. They have the people. They have the technology. How do we do this in a services-based business? Because obviously we're not selling products. We're selling bespoke services to customers, to clients. Now, people in process, we get scale. Between people in technology, we start to innovate. We start using different tools that innovate the way we interact with our customers, the way we interact with each other. The last 3 months, I think you've noticed you're all now using Zoom and Slack and all these different tools that you've never thought of using before. But now you're also finding that you're doing things more efficiently because you're not getting up and getting stuck, getting a coffee and having the water cooler moments. And don't get me wrong, they're great moments to have. But I definitely feel like my business is getting more out of me than they did before that, just because I'm sitting in one chair, getting all my things done, doing all my calls from this one spot. And that's because for us, we have a system, a process, and all of this in place. So thinking about what does this also look like in the real world, what's another example I can give you? And I'm not a big fan of rowing typically, but when I was trying to think of ideas, this actually fits really well. So for rowing, if you think Olympic rowing, the technology being the boat determines how you're going forward, and any improvements in that can make small incremental changes to help you gain an extra couple of seconds to beat your competitor, to win world records. You've got people, and these people are trained, and they're working in sync, and they're doing that in a particular process. So this, you know, if you think Olympic rowing or just rowing in general, great real-world example of what PPT looks like out in the marketplace. Bit of a history lesson. PPT was actually developed back in the 60s. I know, old school. And this is originally what it used to look like. It was actually looking at what are all the tasks, what is the structure, the people, the technology, and how do we change and interact in those different models? So originally it was called the Levitt's Diamond model, and then that was eventually restructured into the PPT framework. So we're looking at people, process, technology, and how that overlaps. I showed you the 3-circle option at the start as to how that overlaps, but I also like to think about your PPT as a golden triangle, or a stool for that matter. We're looking at it from the top down. If you overbalance on people, then everything else falls over. If you overbalance on technology, you've got too many tools in your firm or your business or with your clients, we overbalance and it doesn't work. There's got to be a balance between all three. Thus, we're getting this 3-legged stool, the golden triangle of people, process, and technology. And again, you're wondering, how does this help me create customer experiences digitally? I promise I'm getting there. My next favorite, I guess, is that when we start to see this occur, we get competitive advantage. When customer experience overlays with employee experience and it works and there's synergy, that's where the magic really starts to come through. And you will hear and say this all the time. Anytime a customer said to you in the last couple of weeks that they appreciate you and they love the work that you're doing for them, they couldn't do this without you, it's because there's a synergy in there between their experience, how they're interacting with your business. So I know I say employee experience, it could just be the way it interacts with your business or company or whatever it is. That's where your competitive advantage comes out of. How do you make them feel and the outcomes you're able to achieve for their business? That's the goal. That's what we're heading after. So we talk about what's the problem, how do we figure out where to start when we go to designing client experiences. I look at it a few ways. Are we not fast enough? Actually, I have skipped a slide. I thought I've gone too far. There's a few things we look at first. What are the problems, or what are the things we're trying to improve in our business? How do we complete the work faster? How do we do it with less resources? How do we improve the quality or the outcome of the work that we're putting out? And how do we improve our customer satisfaction? How can we achieve any one of these things within this experience? And again, it comes back to having a service blueprint, which you're going to get resources for as well on the back of this. So what's the biggest problem in your firm? Write this down if you have to, say it out loud, do a few star jumps. I don't mind, I can't see. Are we not fast enough? Are we not efficient enough? Are we not creating enough new value? And that is a really big one for me. Creating new value is kind of the epitome of everything we do in business. If we're not creating new value, eventually we become stagnant. Our clients don't actually know what they're doing with us, and this is where they actually become more prone to churning, to leaving, to going to someone else. The amount of posts I've seen on LinkedIn and social media about small business owners outraged that they haven't heard from their customer, from their accountant, is astonishing. And these are the points where we actually help create new value. It's just turning up. It's just being there. It's being able to just send an email with the resources and everything that you're working on allows you to start creating new value and creating better and more improved relationships with your clients. But again, doing that willy-nilly without a plan means you can do it one week and forget to do it the second week and whatever it may be. Process, planning, blueprint. Let's go to the blueprint. So this is a great example of a service blueprint. And there's a few different things I want you to look at. So at the very top, you've got your customer journey. So I talked at the start about market orientation or having that client customer centricity. You need to have a customer journey mapped out in your firm. And you can apply this to any part of your business. It could, for me personally, we talk about client onboarding a lot, but you might just go earlier that and go, well, does it start with the new lead and the prospecting element? What happens before they even get to sitting down to do a proposal and a quote? But what happens later on? What are we doing with our monthly management reporting meetings, our quarterly clients? What does that blueprint look like? How are those clients interacting with us? What team members, and then what goes on behind that? So on my here, I've got my customer journey, which is above my line of interaction. And you can see it's visiting a website, this is not an accounting example, but a template would work for you if you mapped it out. They visit a store, potentially they discuss different features or services that they're after, but then you can see that the line points down further. So if they visit the website, did they leave a support chat? And under that support chat, there's the backstage action. So we've got line of interaction, line of visibility, and then line of internal interaction. So you've got what the customer sees, the team member that's helping that customer in that first part, the underlying layer of what systems or whatever is built on that interaction, and then underneath that, what are the support processes that we can see under that line of internal interaction. As we start to map out a service blueprint, we're considering our people, our process, and our tech. And all of this is designed to help improve the four elements I said before. How do we do this more efficiently? How do we do it faster? How do we improve client customer satisfaction? And when I've got a service blueprint like this, I can scale my business quite well. I understand that if I add 10 or 20 new reps or team members or whatever it may be, even if it's one, and they've got a plan to follow, or it's two, and then it's just a matter of me trying to get the demand and making sure that we're putting enough people through this process to warrant having the right amount of people, to warrant having that level of subscription on our technology. And again, this is where that balance comes in. There's no point having an enterprise version of, say, Zoom for 5,000 webinar attendees a month when it's like, okay, I only need for 100, or I only need it for my small team of people to have it. We want to get that balance in place, knowing do we have the tech set up, have we got the processes laid out, and do we know exactly what happens in our customer journey that allows us to create that competitive advantage that I outlined before. There's 5 steps to creating a service blueprint. There's an article that I'll share into the chat section after this, but and don't get me wrong, it's work. Like it's not just something you'll do straight away. Like you're going to have to actually invest some time, do a bit of research and understand, well, what is the experience we want to create? Like they say, all the good things in life don't come easy. Creating a service blueprint specific to you will not be easy. I couldn't give you my service blueprint or one from another firm because it won't be relevant for you, because everyone on this call runs a different type of business. You all might be doing accounting, bookkeeping services, but you're all doing them differently. And there's different things that, Jim up the road isn't doing from Barbara on the other side of town. There's no point comparing and so forth as a result. 5 steps to service blueprinting we need to find and support. So we need to actually have your team on board. They need to be aware of what you're trying to do. We want to define the goal. What is it we're actually trying to improve within this process? We then need to gather the research. So customer interviews, survey employees, stakeholders, everyone that's involved in that journey. We need different elements to focus on to understand, are we hitting the right things? Are we focusing on the right problems? Then we can map out the blueprint. And this is typically what takes a little bit of time, but I would recommend mapping it out with your team. If you don't have a team, map it out with your team of colleagues, your community. I've seen it on LinkedIn. I know you're all hanging out with video chats and calls and doing everything all in different businesses. This is your chance to be able to do that together and get really good feedback on whether your services and your experience and your blueprint is good, if it's right, if it makes sense to them. Try and get ideas from other people amongst that. And then you want to refine and distribute. We're going to test it. Did it work? Did it not work? Did we get a high NPS as a result? And this is a good place to start. When you think about high NPS scores, if you're measuring NPS, being your net promoter score, understanding how you got a high NPS in the first place, working backwards from that. We got a 9 out of a 10 because that person really enjoyed the interaction they had with Jeffrey about the cash flow plan that we put together for them on the back of everything that's going on right now. Okay, cool. How do we replicate that 100 times? How do we get 109 and 10 out of a 10 NPS scores? And then compare that with the NPS scores where they are sitting at less than 5. What led to that interaction? What is it that got us to a 5 out of 10? How do we make sure that never happens again? And this is how we start thinking about creating different experiences, but now doing it digitally. And to be fair, I could have taken the word digitally off this topic because you can do this in any regard. It's not just about doing it digitally. You're already doing this online. Most of you, if you're here, I suspect you're all on cloud, accounting, tech. I know you subscribe to that community. You're listening to people that are very involved and engaged in that. I'm not surprised if that's also where you're at. But creating experiences comes to having blueprints and processes. Some people go through, no, it just doesn't seem authentic, and I really want to make a difference for every single client. I'm like, yeah, I want you to as well. I want you to do it consistently. I don't want you to just have favorites with people. I want to make sure everyone's getting the same level of service every single time, and that's the whole point of creating a service blueprint. So just coming back in around the track, and again, I had 1 point for today, and we've covered the bulk of it so far, and I hope you've enjoyed it. So what are we saying? We're saying you need to have a balance of people, process, and tech. If you don't know what that is, then start there. Start understanding what is our balance for our PPT framework. What are the other examples in your business where this already exists, or what is the analogy that you can get on board with already? That, in a nutshell, is where I'm going to leave you, to be honest, because I want you to take away and just think more so around how do we create the service blueprint. Start by creating that customer journey and focusing on where is it in our business we want to make those improvements. This is the article that I've pulled that image from on 5 steps to creating a service blueprint, and I will share that in the chat now, and you can go through all of that. So if you're keen, you like what you saw, go through. It's not my work, it's their work. So if you don't like it, it's not my fault. And that's where I'm going to leave it. So today, my whole point, creating a service blueprint, measuring your client outcomes, it starts there. It starts in all of that work and knowing. Vipul, to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for sharing. In terms of this event, normally we'd have a whole day to share with our clients, and what we're trying to do is take a small part of the customer journey that's particularly relevant at this moment in time, because how we communicate, how we use the time that we now have, perhaps where we're not commuting to the office, to actually deal with the where we're at in terms of the customer journey. It's perhaps something we've never thought about. Some have, and perhaps it, as Trent just shared, it's about systemizing it. And we certainly are great believers of that. And I know, Karen, the work that you and your team do, it's very much around identifying what a customer's needs are and then fulfilling them to fit that particular client's purpose. And I think that is the really important part. And sorry, I couldn't get my mic on in between Alexandra and Trent, but you know, you talked about the client being the hero, and you're absolutely right. But 28 years after my parents' accountant retired, I'm still talking about him. But you know, the truth is, you're absolutely right. My parents are the ones that worked hard day to day. They turned up every day to make their business more successful. But actually, we're their coaches, you know, as the profession. We're their financial coaches. We're the ones that help them make those difficult decisions, or the ones that stop them making the wrong decision. So it's about making sure that wherever our clients need our help, we're there to help them. What I've shown in this sort of customer journey deals with the component parts of it, but there's lots of different levels of service around that. And you know, we're not pretending in 90 minutes that we'll deal with that. But I certainly think it is so important that you do look at what you're doing. And but in terms of where I want to leave it, and please, any of you, if you want to join in, please do. But these are the things that I think are so important. Sharing your values, because if you do that, it gives leadership, not just for yourself, but for the team around you, that actually what you believe in at this moment in time, it is, you will be judged on how close to those values you've been able to keep, both by your teams and your clients. So be honest, both with yourself and your teams. And, you know, I think that for me is the biggest takeaway from the environment that we currently find ourselves in. But I think there will absolutely be will it ever be what it was 6 weeks ago? Undoubtedly it will be different. But I think those that stick to their values will be the ones that actually come out better for it. So I think that's where my thoughts. Do you have anything further that you wish to add?
No, I was just going to say, Vipul, I couldn't agree more that we're not going back to normal. And anyone who thinks we're going back to normal hasn't learned what this crisis is needing to show us, which is we got to go forward to something new. But there are things which will remain the same. And I agree entirely. Those things will be values. They will be honesty. They'll be relationship. They'll be empathy. So if you hold to those things, don't go back to normal. Go to a new place. Everyone's going to be going to a new place, but you go there with all the best of these things, and you and your firm will be far better off in the long run. And I think my final encouragement is don't despair if you're not getting leads, or things are going slow, or you can't even see how you're going to be on the other side of this. You will be when you stick with the principles of what your values are and live up to them and help people. Just help people and do it as visibly as possible, and it will come around in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't really have a lot more to say. I mean, we hope in November to have a physical event. I don't know how much social distancing there will be, so we may need a much bigger room, but we'll cross that bridge closer to the time. But I'm very, very grateful for all the panelists today and all of you delegates, and we hope it's been really, really useful to you all. And thank you again, and please stay well and stay